everyone, and welcome to our FinOpsBE session. My name is Regina Schulte. I'm a community advisor lead with the FinOps Foundation. And our FinOpsBE topic for today is how to move from a contributor to a manager of FinOps. Before I introduce to you our wonderful panel, I do want to remind everyone of our FinOps Foundation mission, which is to advance the people who manage the value of the cloud. We do support this mission by creating connections and building our community. Today, our community is over 16,000 plus members strong. And if you're not already a member of our community, we'd love to have you join us. Just go to FinOps.org to join. We support our mission through our education and certification opportunities that we create. And lastly, through our best practices and standards. And to learn more about any of these, please just go to FinOps.org. Let's meet our panel. Our first panelist is Carlos Galan. Carlos is a cloud FinOps lead with Just Eat Takeaway. Welcome, Carlos. If you would tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and what you do within the FinOps domain.
Sure. Thank you, Regina. Hi, everyone. My name is Carlos Galan. I'm the Cloud FinOps lead at justeattakeaway.com, and we are on a mission trying to be as cost efficient as we can in the use of our cloud and SaaS platforms. I've been here for almost a year now, and I am based in London, UK. So happy to be here.
Thank you, Carlos. And again, welcome. Our next panelist is Natasha Shi. Natasha is a FinOps senior manager with BMO. Natasha, welcome. Please share with us a little bit about yourself and what you do in the FinOps world.
Thanks, Regina. Thanks for having me. So I'm Natasha Shi. I'm a senior FinOps manager at BMO. I've been in the financial services industry for over 15 years, and I'm based out of Toronto. I'm a CPA by trade, started off in technology finance and took off progressive roles in product management, workforce transformation, and most recently in my role in FinOps. I'm excited to be here to share my journey on becoming a FinOps manager.
Thanks, Natasha. We're excited you're here. And lastly, I'd like to introduce you to Deeja Cruz. Deeja is a FinOps analyst with Datadog, and Deeja will also be our moderator for this session. Welcome, Deeja, and thank you for being our moderator. Please tell us a little bit about yourself and your FinOps journey. And then when you're done sharing some things about yourself, I'm going to let you kick off our discussion.
Awesome. Thanks, Regina. Hi, everyone. My name is Deeja Cruz, and I am currently a FinOps analyst at Datadog, where myself and a small team manage all things cloud cost and FinOps related. Before that, I did some consulting at a firm based out of Austin, Texas for about 3.5 years, and I'm very excited to be here today with our lovely panelists. All right. To kick things off, let's talk about a little bit how each of you personally got started in the field of FinOps, what inspired you to pursue your career. Natasha, let's start with you.
Sounds good. I would say my career kind of grew into FinOps. I started off in technology finance space, and towards the middle of my career, like every other organization in the financial institution, we are gaining more footprint in cloud. And there is a gap and a need to start understanding what is driving the cloud spend. Why are we not seeing the value of moving to cloud that all the white papers are telling us? So this is where me trying to connect the financial benefits with where the organization is going, that kind of led me into cloud. And also recognizing that there's different operating models between finance, business, and technology that need to change in order for us to be able to support the organization as they shift more into cloud operations. So with FinOps gaining more momentum, and as Regina has kind of said in the beginning of the talk here, that we are now 16,000 members strong, there is really a growing footprint of same-minded folks that brings me to the FinOps Foundation and lead me to decide to grow a career in FinOps.
Excellent, thank you. And then Carlos, how did you get started in this field?
Well, I would say it's a rather indirect way. We can go back to the pandemic, where I was doing a role at pre-sales for a company on the customer engagement and loyalty space. And so I felt I was kind of in a career plateau, and I wanted to learn something. I was a bit curious about, especially with the things I was working on. So I started to deep dive into things like I want to learn modern web development. They're very simple things like front end, back end. I come from a sort of technical background, but I had been away from it for a long time. So learning things like JavaScript, React, that sort of thing, understand how to put these things together. At some point, I realized I would need to know, like, where do we actually put these things that we serve to the customers? And we realized about the cloud service providers and whatnot. AWS most likely was the most notable at that point. And I wanted to learn about AWS. So they provided these sort of certifications, and I started with the easiest one. So suddenly I got hooked into the next ones, and I think I did almost all the way to professional level. So with that knowledge, I was a bit like, maybe I can try to work at AWS. No, maybe it's possible. And somehow I was invited to join. I did the process, the loop interview, and whatnot. But the role, it was very interesting because it was called Cloud Financial Management, which I had no idea about before. That's the name that AWS actually gives to FinOps. And it made sense because it was, I came from I'm kind of a hybrid background. So I started very technical in my career, and then I moved into the more business side. So this seems like a perfect fit. And that's how I got there. So I think ultimately I got there inspired by curiosity and a need for change at the time, if that makes sense.
Makes complete sense. I would imagine a lot of us ended up here because of curiosity. All right. So can you share any challenges that you faced or obstacles that you overcame while establishing yourself in the FinOps field? Carlos, let's start with you.
Sure. I think, well, when I started in AWS with the cloud financial management, my role was as an advisor to large companies. So I think there was a disconnect between my role as an advisor and the actual level of experience that I had with cloud FinOps. So I had to build to accelerate that foundation as quick as I could. And I guess I did it combining a little bit of the sort of the intellectual property that AWS had developed for the last years on cloud financial management. Obviously, I started to understand about the FinOps Foundation and all the material that they provided, plus all my AWS certifications that I've done before. So I kind of tried to put these things together to see maybe I can build something out of that. And one of the things that I did, I guess, to try to help customers taking advantage of those, I guess, 3 sources of information that I started to build up was to create an educational service for the long tail of our customers, right? So I created a scaling function at the Cloud Financial Management sort of division of AWS to teach customers, to teach both the sort of FinOps wannabe personas within companies, or also tech personas to how to actually do FinOps at organizations. And we call that the Cloud Finance Onboarding, which is a half-day course. And I think most likely you can see it still out there on LinkedIn somehow. But yeah, I think that was the first hurdle to sort of to address that for sure.
Definitely. And then Natasha, same question. What sorts of challenges and hurdles did you encounter while you were establishing yourself?
Yeah, before I go into that, I think I may be one of the beneficiary of what you have stood up, Carlos, in terms of like introduction to FinOps. So as a finance person, the lack of the technical background was one of my key challenges, right? Sometimes you just get lost in the sea of acronyms like what are the architects and engineers talking about EC2, lambdas, FSX, and snowballs, like English. But I came to realize very quickly that there's really a lot of information out there, similar to the ones on LinkedIn, or even on the vendor's website. They have tons of information that I can get myself up to date as well as certified. So for me, the biggest challenge here is really kind of shifting from a finance mindset to really understand some of the technical working, not to the point that I can solution architect, but to be able to speak the same language and understand what the products are and the billing structure.
Definitely. There's an entire language that you need to learn in order to be successful in this field, I would say. So thank you so much for sharing that. Can you share your story of how you made the transition into management, and what are some of the factors that you feel contributed to your success, Natasha?
Definitely. So I do feel very strongly that for me, it's being in the right place in the right time as we are standing up our FinOps team. Although I'm not really technically trained by background, but with the balanced team structure that has been stood up in BMO, it kind of gave me the confidence to be able to jump into the management role where I understand that I do have colleagues who are more technically trained that can address issues from the technical solutioning side, while from my end, focusing on my own strength, bringing the financial as well as the change management capabilities to the team. So to me, it's a combination of team structure as well as knowing that I have the resources and support needed to make myself successful in this role.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense. And then Carlos, can you also share a little bit about how you made that leap into management and your experience? Have you faced any challenges or obstacles when you transitioned into that management position, and how did you overcome those?
Sure. So I think after 2 years, I've been an individual contributor at a FinOps role in AWS. I was offered to be a cloud FinOps lead at my current position in justitakeaway.com, which for me was great because it was to have the ability to own and actually implement FinOps at an actual customer this time, plus being a manager, which is something that I've always wanted to do. But obviously, the main problem that we always face is like, how do you actually, what does that mean? So we want to make sure that we drive results with a team. It's not just you, right? So how do you actually do that? The first things that I did obviously was to read a couple of books on management for sure, to sort of get some enlightenment for what are the things that we should be looking at. As well as speaking to actual people who have actually been doing management, not necessarily in the FinOps world, but general, to understand that sort of main structure. And I think there's a couple of themes that came out of that. I would say number one is I think it's very important to understand that it is critical to have a team purpose or direction, right? So you want to make sure that your team members know exactly or they feel that whatever efforts they're doing or all the work that they're doing actually is they understand how it is affecting the organization, how it fits within the overall strategy, right? That's very important. Number one, so that's number one. Number two, it's important also to understand or to have a balance between you as a person wanting to do to actually do things, as opposed to delegating things to your team, right? That is to strike the balance. Should I do it? Should I let them do it? That is also something that to be very mindful of. It's not always crystal clear, but it's a critical for any manager. And obviously, one of the key things that I learned in this process as well is that you as a manager, one of your main responsibilities of obviously is making sure that your team is successful. And part of that is being an enabler for your team throughout the organization, right? So it is your responsibility to also try to understand how the pieces fit together, who is what or who is who within the organization, so you're able to sort of break any barriers that your team may have to actually get things done, right? I think that's very important. So those are kind of the main things that I discovered as I was trying to get into the management position for the FinOps function in particular.
Yeah, and just to jump in quickly here, Deeja, so it's really a cross-functional practice, to Carlos' point, with FinOps, right? And sometimes when you wear the management hat, it is really a little bit more like a relationship manager, more than anything else, to really kind of bring the stakeholders together.
Definitely. Did either of you, I guess maybe the question that I'm asking is, how long do you think it took for each of you to feel comfortable, delegating or being comfortable in that new role?
Well, I guess in my case, I've been in this management role for almost a year now. I think that I'm still learning. I still discover as I move forward things that I should have done better. So it's a good thing, right? So it's as long as you build trust with your team that you are on a journey together, I think that's what makes I guess learning from your mistakes easy and tolerable, and it's pretty much joining on the sort of effort together for sure.
Yeah, I think from my end, it took a little bit of time as well to get comfortable delegating or even finding out what is the right working model within your team. Because as I've mentioned, our team is quite federated in the sense that everyone comes with different skill set, and knowing how each other fit together and finding that partnership even within our team to have that tech team of tech versus finance took a little while to get a working model together. But I'm happy to say after about a year or so, we were kind of in a good working momentum. And just with everything else, there's always new changes coming down the pipe as it relates to cloud. So it's really always evolving as we go through on a daily basis. But we do go through iteration in terms of what is our 3 months goal, etc., and work towards that in bite-sized chunk, really more in a more agile delivery method.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Let's see. Switching gears a little bit, how important is it for FinOps managers to have that balanced understanding, right? We talked about the different pathways that you've taken to get here, having a little bit more of a technical background for you, Carlos. Natasha, you came up through more of a financial route. So how important is it to have that balance? How can someone enhance their technical or financial knowledge as needed in order to find that balance? Natasha.
Yeah, so I do think it's very important to have that balance and speaking the same language, because I always come from the point of everybody want to do the right thing in whatever organization that you're part of. But a lot of times things are not going the way we all intended because we are not understanding each other properly. So having that mediator, which is what I see FinOps as, bridging between business and technology, really helps drive the true business value of cloud. One key thing in terms of what I found really helpful on our team is really hiring people with different skill set, hiring people who are better than you, knowing more out there that's in the industry. Because as I've mentioned, cloud is fast paced and it's always evolving. There's always new services that's made available. So having that interest in the technology itself, as well as understanding the technicality of financials, to what extent can we actually adjust our financial rules to meet the evolving cloud technology. It's critical for the success of any FinOps team. So to me, it's really understanding each other's strength and having the right team in place to move the practice forward.
Absolutely. And then Carlos, same question. How important is it to have that balance? And then how would you advise someone to brush up on more of the financial side if they also come from a more technical background?
Sure. I think like Natasha said about hiring people who are better than you, right? So I think that's a key statement there. Managers, I think it is very important for us to have a wide scope of understanding, but a shallow depth, right? So you want to make sure that you delegate the depth of understanding of each particular area to those who you hire, the people that are part of your team, right? So you just play a translator. So you want to have a wide understanding, but a shallow depth, right? Obviously, we come from different parts. We come from technology. We come from finance, from business. So I think that if you need some finance fine tuning, that makes sense. Anything that has to do the word accounting on it, I think is crucial, right? So anything that has to do with financial accounting, knowing what revenues, costs, profit margin, contribution margin is, I think that is super important, as well as things like managerial accounting, right? So anything that is activity-based costing, ABC, because you'll do that a lot by trying to take shared spots of spend and distribute it across different parts of the business. So it's those things. It's accounting. It's counting the beans. That's what we do in FinOps. So that part is super important. When it comes to the technology side, if you come from finance, if you want to fine tune the technology bit, there's always, any cloud education, any sort of certification that you don't have to go to a professional level for sure. No, anything that is the first ones are always nice, so you can have that sort of framework of what cloud is and how it works. Very important, billing structures, how services are built for. There are many different types of services. You want to understand not exactly, but have a fairly good idea of how each of these are built, whether that is by gigabyte, by hour, by second, or a combination of those, right? The more and more cloud evolves, the more the billing structures also evolve, right? So the curve file for AWS, try to understand a little bit of that, how it works, and how to get the information that you need out of it, right? And of course, any tooling, right? So if you want to make sure that there's some organizations, they leverage the native tooling of each cloud provider, but some others, they leverage some more third-party services as well, right? So you want to make sure that you have, the right tool for the right job. You understand a little bit of that. So I think with those two fine-tunings, depending on where you come from, hopefully that helps you to have that sort of more balanced approach that we would wish to have as managers, at least. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, this is all excellent advice, regardless of which area you come from, in order to get up to speed. Okay, so we talked a little bit about having an interest in the type of work that we do. We talked a little bit about staying curious, about how to balance out your skill set if you come from more technical or financial or neither. So in your opinion, Carlos, we'll start with you. What sets apart a successful FinOps professional from others who come from a more traditional background, be it finance or technology?
Yeah, so I think it makes sense to understand that the mission of a FinOps function, right, as such, is to enable the organization to be as cost effective in their cloud spend as they can, right? So in the end, we all know that spend in the end is how much you use it multiplied by how much you pay for it, right? That's it. Those are the two sort of big parts of what we're trying to control. So even though we have individuals in the team that, as we said before, that are the specialists at something, whether that is the usage bit or the rate bit of FinOps, right? And we expect from them to be the professionals that they need to be across those areas. There is definitely an opportunity to provide the greatest possible value by actually having a little bit of that balanced understanding. And I'm not talking about the management, I'm talking about the actual team members also trying to build that bridge as well, right? Because in the end, we should be able to connect the dots, right? So FinOps is pretty much about storytelling. Once you understand, if you understand one side of the equation and you understand a little bit of the other one, then it becomes that much easier to connect the dots and to make sense of the amounts of the incredible amount of data that we have in cloud in a very concise way for individuals that we want them to understand and to take action. That's what it is, man.
Absolutely. And then Natasha, from your perspective, what sets apart someone who is successful in this space from others who come from a more traditional finance or technology background?
Yeah, and just to echo Carlos, it is really just to be able to bridge the gap, right? So as we all know that every team or every pillar has their core mission and function that they need to perform. Technology needs to make sure that system runs in an optimal manner. Finance needs to make sure that we're on plan, on forecast, and know how to plan and forecast. But what is really missing is how to get both teams to understand how each other function to really get to the optimized end goal. So a successful FinOps team here is really someone who is able to bring the right folks to the table, really bubble up the mountains of data that we have to make it consumable for each other and try to kind of meet the common outcome. It's ultimately what a successful FinOps team can do. And the other piece is really around, I can't emphasize enough on the change management as well as the relationship building component that comes with FinOps is just because in an organization like BMO, we are a large organization and we do have a lot of processes in place to make sure that we keep the bank safe. But as a result of that as well, we do need enabling teams such as a FinOps function to really help bridge the gap and bring folks together to drive the cloud optimization outcome that we're aiming for.
Absolutely, that makes a ton of sense. Let's see. Okay, as a FinOps manager, what are some key aspects that you all prioritize in order to support the growth and development of your team members? We talked about making sure you have the right mix of team members. So once you get that right mix and they're on your teams, how do you go about developing them? Natasha, we'll start with you.
Yeah, definitely. So one of the key roles of a manager is to make sure that you help your team grow and foundationally understanding what their career goals are from the start will really help set the stage, right? Because the way I always approach people management is it is really a team effort. I don't want to dictate where you want to take your career, but I'll be there to support you after having understanding where you want to take yourself. So having understand their career goals and then be able to tee up the opportunities as well as trainings that are available to really help them get there. And on top of that as well is really finding what I'll coin as stretch projects to really help them uncover some part of themselves. It is something that I can actually notice throughout day-to-day interaction. And also networking opportunity for them to build their network and have the right mentorship and sponsorship across the organization to help them grow their career.
No, that's all really good advice. The stretch projects, I think in particular, can be very interesting in the FinOps space because there's still so much opportunity here. Carlos, how about you? How do you develop your team and ensure that they are successful?
Sure, but just like Natasha said, I think it is our responsibility as managers to provide the inspiration that our team members need to go to the next level. The first bit is to understand each team member individually. So we cannot use, I would say, a cookie cutter approach for everyone. So everyone's going to have a different background, different position in their career, different ambitions, right? So that is the foundation for each person. Once you have that, then I guess the next step, you can help them to develop a plan for what you can do now, but also try to help your team to think big, right? So what is the next thing? What can you actually aim for? Roughly when can you actually achieve that, right? So it's providing I wouldn't say a dictatorship mode at all, but it's more about inspiration or about, let's call it a two-way conversation, right? So using your experience as someone who has gone through that path already to try to provide some of that as well to your team members once you know what each of them want, right? And obviously, anything that they can do to support themselves, like Natasha says, some internal sort of stretch projects or reading any books, or attending any specific conferences where you can actually see what is actually going on in the real world, and having those networking opportunities right there. So it's just creating. It doesn't take much effort, but it definitely shows, that you care about your team, and that also helps you to gain a little bit of that authority. Like the moral authority. To grow together as a team, to develop, to reach your objectives as well, right? So I think that's they go hand in hand for sure.
Absolutely, and I think taking a tailored approach is really the right way to go here, as you said, right? Not having a cookie cutter approach to all of your teammates or team members. Excuse me. Let's see here. So. As someone in a management position within FinOps, how do you ensure effective collaboration with other teams, right? So now you have your team, you're a well-oiled machine internally. How do you liaise with other teams across the company, whether it's finance, operations, IT. How do you work with those teams to ensure that you're optimizing the cloud costs and the performance? Natasha, let's start with you.
Yeah, for sure. So for me, it's really being able to showcase wins across the enterprise, right? As I've mentioned earlier on, it is a team sport. There is there are going to be MVPs on some period of time, but it is really being able to showcase those as learnings and seeing it as an enterprise achievement more than a finger pointing kind of activity. Because the last thing that we want to kind of have that notation on any FinOps team is that we're just there to chase dollars. Dollars is definitely one component, but the bigger prize that we're gaming for is to make sure that we're optimizing our cloud spend. It could be spending more, but if we're spending in the right area, how do we showcase that? How do we tell the story? It is what FinOps wants to bring out and collaborate between the business as well as technology. And what we want to be able to do is to make sure that all the stakeholders are connected and understand what the common outcome is we're trying to accomplish with FinOps, and tell a narrative and story that is beneficial, or in cases where there's lessons learned, showcase it in a way that we're evolving our cloud maturity across the bank versus it being a finger pointing exercise.
Absolutely. I think that's so important to treat it more as a learning opportunity than anything else. So, Carlos, when it comes to your team, how do you ensure that you're working successfully across other teams within your organization?
Yeah, I think well, one thing that has helped us for sure, and that's where we actually started from, is to try to sell or to market ourselves, right? One of the big problems that FinOps has is that we are a relatively new function. We're not the traditional finance department or traditional marketing department. So we are this new thing coming in. So it's like who we are, what are we trying to achieve, what do we require from you, stakeholder. Those are, I think that, so we created a little deck that we did a sort of a roadshow across our offices, like this is who we are, this is what we're trying to do. So we started with that, it's that sort of narrative. But then in order to really gain that sort of, let's call it cooperation that we're requiring for that, at the same time, we also, and this is something that is an ongoing basis. We're trying to understand the needs of these stakeholders as well. So what are they trying to achieve? How can we actually help you? We have an idea of how we can help you, but we really want to know what you need maybe today, in 2 weeks' time, something like more concrete. And then based on that, try to solve problems. And slowly, that is a way to actually develop your, I guess, your brand equity. Who are we and we're trying to solve, right? And I think that's the best approach. First, show who we are, but at the same time, trying to have a close loop, so understand the other party as well, so we can slowly back and forth trying to find what's the best approach for each given organization, for sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it goes back to, I think, what Natasha was saying earlier about not only the change management, but that relationship management. That's what I'm hearing a lot from the both of you, is a lot of this has to do with building relationships, not only in your own team, but across the organization. All right. Let's talk a little bit about personal development, professional development. So, Carlos, starting with you, what would you say are some valuable resources that you would want to share out with everyone watching? Any workshops, professional development opportunities? I know we mentioned going to conferences or networking events. So what are some of those opportunities that you would suggest so that other FinOps professionals can explore and enhance their managerial skills?
Sure. I think what I would say for those who are looking for managerial sort of world within the FinOps world, it helps to break apart things, right? So you can think about learning about management as one thing and learning about FinOps as another thing if you don't really know FinOps that much well. So in terms of the management bit, I read a couple of books, I guess, that I can recommend to be very specific. There's one called The Making of a Manager by Julie Chuo. I think she used to be a VP of design for Facebook back in the day. Very concrete, very easy to read, and it provides you with I think it's a great book for sure to start. And I'm saying if you are a bit more academic, if you like a bit more the article-based system, then you always have access to the Harvard Business Review. And they came up with this. Yeah, I can see your nodding for sure. Yeah. So, but they created this book called, I think it's for new managers or something like that, for recent managers. I think that's the title. And I think it takes some of the articles, and I think it's a good complement to the one that I said before. Then, there's a bunch of things, right? So obviously you have a FinOps X conference. There's something that is on the table now. If you live in Europe and you couldn't go to the other one because it's too far from the other side of the world, now you have one in Barcelona coming up. So I guess it's the place to learn about FinOps. Although I've been to many other conferences where FinOps is discussed, but if you really want to make sure that you understand FinOps, this is the place, right? This is the place where people are actually making the big leaps, right? And then there's no substitute for real world experience, right? Anything that you can do, any cross-functional projects you can get involved, any sort of mentoring that can help you to drive that sort of managerial thinking and behaviors. I think it also helps, right? So you can always provide to your team members or to other people the sort of ideas of things that they can do, but only they can decide what works best for them. Some people learn very well with reading. Some other people just need to see someone speaking, or some people just learn on the go. So it just really depends on the actual persons as well. So it's very important to realize so that there's no rules, I guess. That's what I want to say. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. And I appreciate that you broke it out, for our visual learners, for our auditory learners, and then for our sort of, hands-on keyboard, if you will, learners. Natasha, same question. What are some resources, tools, workshops, et cetera, that you would recommend for aspiring managers out there?
Yeah, so I think it really depends. To Carlos' point, there's really no cookie cutter in terms of how you get there. Depending on your personality, some people will need to feel comfortable based on the technical skill set to take on the managerial role. But for others, it may be more from the people aspect, that you need to be comfortable interacting with people, taking that ownership. It's more of a soft skill component that you need to build on to become a manager. And just to kind of add on a couple more resources in addition to what Carlos have talked about is if you're more of a visual or audio learner, that I think like TED Talk, there's a lot of TED Talk out there on leadership, managerial skills, as well as interaction with people, along with podcasts. So AWS have their weekly podcast coming out with new services that is a quick half an hour audio kind of thing that you can listen on the train in to make sure that you get the technical know-how as a manager and feel comfortable that you're still kind of keeping yourself abreast with what's up and new without really having to invest the time in a certification. And there's also like the FinOps Foundation podcast as well as FinOps Fridays that are really easy resources that are available to you that you can either do it on your drive or your train ride into work to get that technical knowledge in there. But from people's skill side of the house is really kind of getting comfortable because just speaking from personal experience, I'm a little bit of an introvert. Speaking to people, it's a little a bit challenging for me in the sense that I'll prefer to be in the background if I can. But as we all know, if you want to be in a managerial role, you kind of have to break out of that shell. So just really kind of pushing yourself beyond your comfort zone. It is one personal goal that you need to kind of enforce onto yourself if you do want to take on a managerial position, not just in FinOps, but just in general. And also just be vocal about what you want in your career. It's key to make sure that your leaders know that you do want to have a managerial position down the hopper in your career roadmap. So having that openness and willingness to learn and knowing that there's a whole wealth of information out there and tooling that can help you succeed.
Yeah, exactly. You are your own best career advocate. So I appreciate that mentioned speaking up and letting your managers know, hey, this is my goal. How can we achieve that? I also appreciate that you mentioned podcasts because I feel like I've learned a ton from podcasts. And back when I had a commute, I absolutely just filled it with podcasts to make the commute a little bit easier.
Yeah.
So, okay. Speaking of, podcasts and learning and being in professional networking organizations such as the FinOps Foundation, which we are all members of, I'm curious from the both of you, how has being a part of the FinOps Foundation community helped to elevate your career? Natasha, we can go ahead and start with you.
Yeah, definitely. So at being part of the foundation, we have community calls and there are many different events as well as special interest group that you can be part of. As you kind of join the community calls, you'll find it kind of give you the confidence and understanding how open and collaborative the community actually is, because you're not the only one with problems. People come to community calls with problems and we have a discussion and we talk it through. It's like, hey, I'm not alone here. So to me, having those opportunities and forums to be able to connect with practitioners across, not just within our country, really kind of help us understand that the same challenges that I face, it's faced by a lot of other folks as well. And knowing that there is a common group that's working towards solving the same problem, it is one of the biggest benefit that I have found since joining the FinOps Foundation. And the website alone is a whole wealth of information as well, understanding what are the core principles of FinOps and having the right visuals and quick guides that you can even just piggyback off and use to talk to your stakeholders. It's really beneficial.
Absolutely. And then Carlos, same question. How has being part of the FinOps Foundation community elevated your career?
Well, I think I remember back then what I mentioned that I had to bridge that gap between being an advisor and having no experience at all in FinOps. So the first thing I did is read the Cloud FinOps book, which I think is a great resource. Definitely very structured, very well has great content. And even the second edition is even better, right? So the first one was maybe focused around the what is FinOps and why it's important and how to and what are the things that are involved in doing FinOps. Whereas the second edition is more about the how, because at that point we had more experience. So the second edition has all these interviews with people who have actually started to do FinOps and how they were tackling these specific challenges or organizations. So I definitely recommend to start there if you haven't. If you are someone who loves to read as I do, that's definitely something that can definitely help you. Also the Slack community, right? It's just like the community calls that Natasha was mentioning. It's just a place where you see people asking the questions that you also would be definitely asking, and you can see the answers already. It's a way to get to exchange information very quickly. The latest thing is just, I don't know how many thousands of people already part of it. So it's very easy to see, to find whatever you're looking for, and it's already being discussed there, right? It's a great source of real world problems and solutions, right? Which is great. And obviously, I cannot say this again, but I guess it's the FinOpsX conference. I went last year to the one in San Diego, and I found it was great. You really struggle to choose what you want to look, because there's so much things happening. I think you have like 3 events going on at the same time every hour. So it's like, where do I go? Where do I sit? Then I need to wait until the recording comes online. So there's so much information, but it's great, right? And now, unfortunately, this year I'm going to go to the San Diego one, but I'm definitely going to make my best effort to go to the Barcelona event in November. So yeah, I think definitely has it's been a great source, incredible source of information and progression in the FinOps career for sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. Excuse me. The recordings from most of the talks, I love that they're on the YouTube channel because I actually have sent a couple of those to my coworkers saying, you should listen to this talk. This is so good. We need to, implement some of the takeaways, in our own organization. So I love that. All right, wrapping up here, some final thoughts. What is one piece of advice that you would give to anyone wanting to pursue a management role in FinOps? Carlos, we'll start with you.
Well, I think the most important thing is to talk to people. I think if there's one thing you can do is just talk to people. There's so much things you can learn, materials, videos, podcasts that we can all do. That is great. They're very super important, but there's no substitute for actually talking to, number one, people who are in the field of FinOps and understanding how they've got there. Just very similar to the conversation that we're having here today, but with them like on a one-to-one basis. But also talk to managers, people who have nothing to do with the FinOps world, but they are just managers, understanding what are their challenges and whatnot, and try to put the things together, right? I think that's my 2 cents for today.
Yeah. Shout out to all the introverts out there. It's important to talk to people. We got to do it. I know, Natasha, we talked about being an introvert. So what's some advice that you would give to the folks out there who also want to pursue a management track in FinOps?
Yeah, so for me, the best advice I can give is to really stay curious, right? And understand that being a FinOps manager in one organization may look very different from being a FinOps manager in another organization. To Carlos' point, talk to people, understand what this specific role within FinOps that you're looking for, and know that you do have the ability to kind of shape the role itself as you think about being a FinOps manager, partly because FinOps on its own, although it's reaching its maturity, but it's still relatively new and things are coming on a daily basis. So having that curiosity and knowing what value you want to bring to the team, it is one key advice that I can give anyone who's looking to get a managerial role within FinOps. And just quickly here in terms of looking at the FinOps Foundation and using it as a resource, one thing I recognize is that there's a lot of women out there in the career of FinOps as well. So if this is one of the limiting factor that you have into consideration, like is this the industry that you want to get into? I do think the foundation is a very good reflection in terms of how inclusive FinOps as a practice is. If it's something that you're thinking about growing your career into.
Absolutely. There's a great Women in FinOps group that meets on a regular basis. So I love that you shouted that out. So it sounds like final words of wisdom: talk to people, stay curious, put yourself out there. Maybe we'll see if Regina can come back and join us to wrap up, our wonderful community lead who put together this whole panel.
Thank you, Deeja, Natasha, Carlos. That was a great discussion. You have shared some really valuable information that I know is going to benefit anyone considering moving from a contributor role into management, or even those who already have. I think it was you, Natasha, that brought up, you used the words, "you're not alone." That's the beauty of our community. We are so big that I guarantee if you're having an issue or have a question, someone else out there is having the same or has already been through it and therefore has some great advice for you. So again, if you're not a member of our community, we really encourage you to join. We'd love to have you. You can connect with each other on Slack. Also, I'm assuming you guys are okay if people connect with you on LinkedIn. Is that okay?
Definitely. Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay. Absolutely.
And I know you're all on Slack. So for those who are already members of our community, you can connect with them on Slack. Feel free to reach out, ask them questions. And for anyone watching, if you have any questions on the FinOps Foundation, on our framework, our education and certification opportunities, or on upcoming events, or how to just join this amazing community, please go to FinOps.org. You'll also find our other sessions from our previous FinOpsBE series here on YouTube. Please check them out. Thank you and have a great day.
JR here from the FinOps Foundation. Thank you for watching. Please go to FinOps.org if you want to get plugged into this amazing community. And of course, hit subscribe right here on YouTube to get all the future content. Hope to see you soon.